I'm Lucas Merriweather Buford, and today I thought I'd talk to you guys about some awesome steampunky games. And I thought, to help me out, I'd grab fellow Antifordian and star of the YouTube channel Landship Scorpios, Lieutenant Flint here.
Hi! And today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite steampunk games and kind of going through that. And this is Antiford on Air.
Alright, so hey, it's great to have you back on the show, man.
Well, thank you. It's great to be back. It's great to see another Antiford on Air and to help out any way I can.
Cool. We decided to pick games that are steampunky, so not necessarily always strictly very exactly steampunk. I asked you to help me get a list together of games in many different categories from many different genres. So yeah, mobile games is our first category. So
yeah.
what'd you come up with?
So the first game that I have for the mobile genre is called Steampunk Syndicate. So it's a tower defense game that's pretty standard. It's got multiple levels and multiple maps. There are multiple different tower that you can use for the tower defense.
Yeah, different units.
Yeah, and they come in all shapes and sizes, and it's very steampunk aesthetic-y. So there are Gatling guns, flamethrowers, weird contraptions, there's alchemists, but a lot of its steampunk-ness comes from the creep that try to get at your walker. Also, you have like a mech walker that defends kind of your home base, is the last line of defense. It's kind of the first tower that you get. You can upgrade it and kind of and customize it. There's also special heroes and everything. It's fantastic. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so we discovered shortly after you put it on our list of recommendations that it's actually a series. There's a second one.
Yes.
And the two kind of blended together for me. But I did really appreciate that the second one gave me the option to pay them money to get rid of the ads. Because I'm a big person for paying to get rid of ads. I don't have ads on anything, so I really like the option.
Yeah, he enjoys supporting the developers and everything as well, especially the ones that made this game. It's a good game. What you'll notice on mobile is there are a lot of steampunk tower defense-esque games on mobile. Not all of them have a lot of steampunky elements. Sometimes it's just a menu option or whatever. There are, of course, you know, I'm not going to bash any of the other ones that are definitely fantastic on there. This was just one of my favorites. There is a new sequel out, which I'm still playing through.
It's on this list, so it's recommended.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that for my mobile recommendation.
Cool. Alright, so for my mobile recommendation, I went a little off the beaten path, and I picked a VR game for Google Daydream. So you slap your phone into the headset, and you've got a little motion control remote here. And so I recommended a really cool kind of space western called Arcslinger. Now Arcslinger is actually made by a pretty big developer, Big Red Button. And they got...
Oh, yeah, I know them.
Right, and they got, what's his name? The voice of Nathan Drake. They got Nolan North.
Nolan North, of course.
Yeah, they got Nolan North to play the main character that you were inhabiting.
Oh, wow.
And it's really, really fun. And you're shooting this really cool gun, and you can swipe up and down, and it makes the gun all spinny. But it also helps you activate new modes for your gun, so you can have fire bullets when you swipe left and then right, or you can have, like, bullets that heal when you kill, and that kind of thing. So it's really, really fun, and it's just one of the most immersive games for Google Daydream. And I think it's well worth the small fee to buy this game. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to play this one, so I'm kind of going off of his recommendation. But from what little I've seen, I'm sure you got footage of it.
You know what? You know what? We're gonna get some footage of you playing. I'm gonna strap the thing in your face, and we'll get footage of you playing.
That's gonna be awful. Alright then, so...
Okay, so that's our mobile recommendations done. We only had a couple. There's only a few that we really properly recommend.
Yeah.
A lot of the ones I wanted to recommend were a lot more on the border. Or it's like, okay, it's not steampunk unless you buy the Top Hat and Monocle DLC.
My recommendation just came from one that I definitely put all my time and effort in, and I actually completed that map app to a point where like you can't go any further. So I mean, that definitely was a win in my book.
Cool. So I guess we're getting a little more into some bigger games. Let's look at the PC.
The first one I'm going to be talking today is actually one of my favorite games, and I liked it before I got into steampunk, but I definitely appreciated steampunkiness. It's called Rise of Nations, Rise of Legends. This is a bit of an older PC game, but I absolutely love this game. So let's talk about it for a second. So it's a real-time strategy game, and it's really fantastic. You know, you have your bases, you build your armies, you gather your resources, and you fight against other factions.
Kind of like the old Command and Conquer game, right?
Yeah, Command and Conquer, StarCraft, etc. This comes maybe a little bit more StarCrafty. It has 3 different unique factions. So one is 100% steampunk. You can't even deny it. It's the Vinci. I'm sure I'm screwing that up. It's the Vinci. They are extremely steampunk. They've got your airships, your dirigibles, your clanky tanks. They've got your clock-powered enhanced soldiers with the telescopic eyes and sometimes the metal legs and things to get them back into the fight. They have everything. They have your robots, the clockwork men, who are kind of done. They've got very Tesla-inspired, industrial age kind of technology.
Cool. And so what's the steampunk faction fighting up against?
They are fighting against 2 different other factions that are equally unique. There's a faction that I consider more magic, but it's more like Arabian Nights, very Middle Eastern magic. So they have a lot of things with genies and magic of the sand and power of fire and glass golems and all these other things that are set up in a completely different way than the Vinci. So there's different ways to upgrade in different forms. So for instance, they have 3 different types of, say, golems, where you have sand, fire, and glass, which is kind of where they go through. And theirs is more mystical, more astrological, and they're just a fantastic magical race. Then you also have your slightly bulky and slow kind of alien, like very primitive alien race.
Yeah, okay.
So it's
very ancient aliens.
Yeah, it's very much like an alien race left technology, and the Incas and the Aztecs and the Egyptians started using that. And they've got a very much more blunt appeal. They don't have much by the way of upgrades, but if you can get enough units out, they'll definitely hit hard.
Very cool.
And all of them working together is a good, unique feel. But I think this does steampunk great because it's not just simple, we got these air travel and we've got this super lightning gun. I feel like it kind of allows you to upgrade in such a way that feels steampunky and build steampunky cities and then kind of explore. It's got that exploration aspect.
Nice. Cool. Alright, so my PC recommendation, number 1 is Deponia, or I guess the Deponia series. They're a series of adventure games. I had a ton of fun with it. I mean, it really is your classic LucasArts style point-and-click adventure. There's a lot of very nice hand-drawn art. It's just very well animated.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's very well designed.
I really like the inventory system, where you just scroll the mouse wheel down and it pulls your inventory down, and you scroll it back up to make it go away. And it's very classic in that it's got a bunch of inventory puzzles where you combine this thing that you picked up with that thing that you picked up, and you combine it to create something else. It's definitely got a lot of moon logic, like your classic adventure games would, where you're like, why would I combine like wasabi peas I found with a mousetrap so that I can get my toothbrush? Okay. And sometimes it's internally consistent logic, but sometimes it's just weird. But we do live in a day and age when you can just look up any of the answers that you're stuck on, so you decide your own difficulty, how much you want to just sit and struggle and figure it out on your own, and how much you're okay, this puzzle I can cheat a little bit, right? But you know, the main character is very snarky. He's a bit of a lazy jerk, actually.
Yeah, I would go even as far as to say he's maybe more of an anti-hero. He's definitely that kind of hero who you're supposed to kind of like, even though he's playfully oblivious.
Yeah.
But he definitely comes across as you hate almost every decision you're forced to make for him, basically. Yeah, and
but I like the story too. It has this whole like world above, world below thing going on.
Oh yeah, and it's absolutely fantastic. It doesn't feel forced. I actually started playing it because you were playing it, and I don't feel like I missed out seeing you solve some of the early puzzles. I feel like I was still able to do it at my own pace, and even though I saw you do certain things, it wasn't immediately obvious how for me to do them.
Absolutely. So that was my first PC pick. So what's your second pick?
Well, my second PC pick today is we're talking about one that it actually took me a bit to find, and it's really interesting and unique. I'm going with another kind of real-time strategy, but it's actually more of a Sims game. It's called Clockwork Empires.
Oh, you were saying it was like a city simulator.
Yeah, like it's like a city simulator. Well, to be honest, it's more of a colony simulator. It's a beautiful game. We'll probably show some trailer footage or something, but you get dropped into the new colony, and you start with nothing but some colonists. So you gotta build up your colony. You get your crafters and your smelters and your food suppliers, and you get your farms going, and you do all of that, and it's really great. And there's some steampunky things. You can get some farming equipment. You can, there's some obviously tea houses and stuff. There's a little bit more steampunky, and I was like, okay, so it's just a sim city kind of deal with a steampunk twist that's kind of Victorian. That's beautiful. Well, it actually gets very steampunky, I would say, in the way it handles being isolated in this colony. They introduce very Lovecraftian-esque monsters and cultists, and what ends up happening is your people will be transformed by what they see. So there'll be certain monsters that are in the colonies that will drive your colonists mad. What'll happen is the first one or the first few who see them will actually go mad, and then a cult will form. And these cults, there's no way that you can actually figure them out because they're still just your colony, and there's no thing that says, yep, this person's now a cultist, except for when they go to cultist meetings and stuff, where they have robes and stuff, and they're kind of hidden. So then you have to bring in the occult expert. You got to bring in Her Majesty's clockwork knights, and the cult is constantly trying to raise these very Lovecraftian-esque creatures to do havoc on your colony.
Kind of like our own lovable Gayovican culture.
Yes, yeah, very much. They get all these Lovecraftian creatures and very, not copyrighted Lovecraftian things that are totally Lovecraftian, and then you get very steampunky soldiers and units and weapons and things to help fight against that. And it's a very interesting twist on the whole thing. It kind of becomes like a little, you got to do some investigating, and it's weird because like most of those Sims, you're like the god looking down on it, and it's weird to like not have that full control.
Right, you're not completely omnipotent, even though you're the god hand cursor.
Yeah, that's kind of making things happen. And to be honest, it looks extremely unique. I believe it's actually new. It just was released on Steam, I believe.
Nice.
And people seem to enjoy it. It's very good. There's a lot of people who helped in the development of it to make it more steampunky and to keep it true to the genre. So it really looks like a well thought out game. Despite the graphics, I'll give it that. The graphics seem like they're a few generations short. But from what I've seen and what I've heard, it's an absolutely beautiful game.
Nice, nice. Okay. So my second pick for the PC is going to be one of our favorite games. We've played it on your channel, and we put that footage up on the Antiford website. Guns of Icarus Online, now known as Guns of Icarus Alliance. They've expanded it a considerable amount since its initial release in 2012. They've added some more factions and stuff, but at its heart, the real gameplay you're going into Guns of Icarus for is the dogfighting. It's the 2 versus 2, the 4 versus 4, and we're talking airships, not players. Each airship is crewed by at least 2. It's
got to be a minimum of 2.
You've got to have
be shocked if someone goes it alone.
You've got to have 3 or 4 players on each ship. Because you have a captain who's piloting, you've got gunners, and you've got engineers. And you can kind of decide whether you want to have a couple engineers or a couple gunners, and do you want some of the gunners doing engineering, do you want some of the engineers doing gunning? You know, there's a lot of weird strategy involved.
There's all types of ships.
Yeah, and the gun layouts on those ships, where you have to run to. I always like playing as the engineer, which involves running around with a wrench, with a spanner, right? Yeah. Or you know, with the fire extinguisher, and you're smashing onto the balloon, you're smashing the engine, and you know, hitting these things is repairing the things. Yeah. Right.
Very steampunk. Yeah, and I think I usually play. Oh, I'm sorry. I started playing as the captain. I always try to do the one that I would be the most helpful at, or the one that people don't want to do and try to do that well. So I think I got stuck as like the captain and piloting, and since then I've kind of learned some of the strategy for some of the ships we were using. So I'm actually very interested in backing in and seeing how much better we do. But like you said, we do have some footage, and I think we're gonna have some footage that we show here.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I would say that's fantastic. It's very stereotypical. With the airships.
Yeah, there's no way we could make this list and not include Guns of Icarus.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I backed the Kickstarter. I was so excited for the Alliance upgrade. So.
Oh, yeah, it's very true to form. It's got a good dedicated fan base. It's a little small, not as big as its release, but yeah. I mean, they're dedicated. They're good. They do their tournaments, and the creators just have a lot of love for the game. I
mean, it's a smaller company, so they were also supposed to release on the PS4. They announced that pretty early on when they were announcing the PS4. When I think that the plans are now is to wait a year or two and then release it on the PS4 with all the Alliance content embedded into it. But that's still pretty up in the air. Last I heard was 2018, but I'll believe it when I see it, and then I'll play the heck out of it all over again. I'd love to have it on the PS4, because while my PC is capable of playing it, the PS4 is going to do a much better job of it, and has the microphone and the controller, and so there's no setup issues, right? Every time you play an online game, and people who don't do it all the time, it's, oh, hey, my microphone's not set up, oh, I forgot to get my... Yeah. It's just, and it's definitely better with a microphone.
I think we played for 5 hours that day that I have the footage on my channel.
Yep.
I recorded 3.5 hours of that 5 hours, and I can tell you most of that footage was me listening about how so-and-so's mic didn't work, and this wasn't set up, and this wasn't done, and we didn't know how to play or who was going to do what.
And honestly, communication is the most important thing, because it definitely is a teamwork game. Yeah.
And I think it really feels like being a part of an airship crew. I really liked it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, that's one of the best things I like about it, is that it gives you that feeling. It's like, this is what it's like to be on an airship. Just period. Even like, yeah, in a dogfight, yes, but just to be crewing on an airship, like the dimensions, what it kind of feels like, what it kind of looks like.
Crawling, jumping.
Looking over the sides, going, oh hey, this airship isn't that big, but yeah, it really couldn't be much bigger, could it? Because otherwise the balloon would have to be huge.
And the next thing you know, you're losing air and you're dropping out of the sky, but you're not dead. Because you're dropping out of the sky.
But you're so almost dead.
Yeah, you've got to rush to fix it.
Like, do you lose hope and just go down, or do you bang on those balloons?
Yeah, no, it's definitely really fun. That's
cool. All right, so I think we're done with our PC recommendations. So we're gonna slide into console recommendations, and like most of the games we've listed already, most of the games coming up are on multiple systems. Some of them might also be on PC or mobile, but we're recommending them as console games first and foremost. We're going to start with some modern games, and that's going to bleed into our older recommendations. But again, with re-releases and such, it's all kind of a bit of a wash. So with that, I guess, how about you start with a recommendation for a modern game?
Certainly. Well, I think it wouldn't be a steampunk video games list, especially about modern games, if we did not bring up the Order 1886. That would just be a sin. This game was for the PS4. It was one of the launch games.
And it's an exclusive.
I believe it's exclusive, correct.
Yeah. I think Sony bankrolled that themselves.
Yeah, so. And it is visually stunning is the word for it. The gameplay is still solid. It's very decent. You've actually taken my recommendation on and actually beat it before I did. So you know a little bit more too. Well, but the story is very engaging. The world is thought thought out and beautiful.
Yeah, everything about it is just screaming cinematic. They've got black bars on the top and bottom to kind of give it more of a cinematic aspect ratio. They've got a bit of the film grain. They've got an intentionally slower frame rate.
I've noticed that no HUD.
Yeah.
Heads-up display. It's very much like you said, very cinematic. I played the beginning of it, and I went, it's going to be really heavy on QuickTime events, and even if it is, they're so nice to watch.
Yeah, I enjoyed the QuickTime event, and like you screwed up and you die, and it's still kind of interesting to watch yourself get killed.
Yeah.
And then they just throw you right back into it. There's no live system or anything silly. You know,
yeah.
It's a very, it's also kind of the gameplay's very Gears of War-like kind of game. Where it's very, over the shoulder, shoot, waves of enemies. I liked better the corridors than the waves. When you were running through.
That's understandable.
I like when you were running through and you were able to start punching people than when you had to sit back and take cover, but it was still really fun.
Yeah, I found myself trying to try the different weapons because they're just all so beautifully designed. They have this scene, which I'm not sure if you have footage, I do, of them just forcing you to just say, look at this, what we've modeled, look at how much effort we put into this. And I didn't feel like it was shoved down my throat. It is so beautiful. From the airships to the costumes and the characters to the rooms and the buildings.
Yeah.
It is so hyper beautiful. On the other hand, it's also hyper grungy, and you really feel like these are lived-in areas.
Yeah. And all the characters are terrible people, but I enjoy watching them anyway.
Yeah.
What I'll say is I saw some of the reviewers talk about this game where they're like, oh, it's not that interactive, there's so many fewer things. And you know what, I actually kind of enjoyed it. It took me a while to get into it, trust me. But I enjoyed the fact that the game only had you interact with things that were important. Because I played a lot of Bioshock just before playing it, and Bioshock, you interact with a whole bunch of things that have no importance. You're just picking up apples, looking in trash cans. Like, I kind of enjoyed that it wasn't trash can rummaging simulator. It was a point against for a lot of reviewers, but it was a point for on my end. It just took a while to get used to it.
I'm prepared for it. I'm still playing through it, and I'm still feeling that it's more of an interactive movie, but I love it. My biggest thing is kind of like what everyone else has with it, is it needed more, and in my opinion, that means Scream sequel. And I don't think it's going to happen, because some people were so upset at how little there was and that it was short, because you can sit down and play through this. You really can. It's all there. Especially if you've already played through the game, it's not going to take you very long to rush through it again.
Yeah, it took me like 4 evenings.
Yeah, about that much of actually playing through it. And to be honest, I don't think that's bad. I think it's what's there is amazing, especially at the price you can get it nowadays. You got to try it. It's a must steampunk game of this generation, and I would definitely be in. It'd be one of the few games I would pre-order for a sequel.
Oh yeah, if there was a sequel, I'd be all on that hot button on the Amazon there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So I guess I'm going to go in the opposite direction here and go away from the big budget, really nice cinematic to one of the more arcadey indie games. I'm going to talk about Foul Play. So Foul Play is your classic 2D brawler, kind of like the old Ninja Turtles games, where you have a little bit up and down, and it's mostly left to right. The difference is that instead of you having like a health meter, you have applause. And the reason you have applause is because the entire game is a series of stage plays. And each level is an act.
I love that. From a design standpoint.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, and it's wicked fun. I really think that the combat was well thought out. It does get a little bit samey once you kind of get into a rhythm of how you like to beat up the enemies. You do tend to stick to it, I'll say that. And it's way more fun with a partner. But I think that genre of games just generally is more fun with a partner.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, it's definitely nice to see it and understand it. In learning to play, it's nicer to do it alone. But a lot of these games that are designed like that, Foul Play, is definitely meant for you and your buddy to sit on the couch and play together.
Gotcha. Yep. So I guess the only other thing I have to say about it is just aesthetically, it's very steampunk. It's kind of on the later end with like some of the archaeology and like Lovecraftian type things, so leaning harder on that later era steampunk, which it just lends itself really well to a really fun arcadey story. And there's a bunch of challenges. Almost forgot. My goodness. There's throughout the levels they'll say something like, "Hey, get a 75 combo in this level," or "Take out the big guy last," because that gets the most applause, right? You want this big crescendo to beating this boss, and you get extra points for it. It's really, really interesting, and it kind of changes things up through the levels, and it just spices it all up. So Foul Play, definitely one of my favorites to recommend, especially in a couch co-op setting. Cool. So what's your next kind of more modern?
Well, my next one is keeping with the theme. I'm going to be talking about Dishonored 2, but to be honest, the entire Dishonored series.
Right, and there's 3 now, right?
I think there is 3. There's I've got Dishonored 2, and there's like Fall of the Outsider or Death of the Outsider.
Something like that, yeah.
Which I thought was a DLC, but apparently it's its own game, which is kind of interesting. So Dishonored is fantastic for many reasons. A lot of people like it for all these different reasons. Today we're talking about the aesthetic and the storyline. Is very steampunk, clockwork things, pseudoscience, gadgets that didn't exist, and just the whole feel and architecture of the world. It's very much a very steampunk game.
Now, the main city, is that Dunwall?
Yes, the main city, which is the main city in the first game, is the capital of the Empire, is Dunwall.
Gotcha, and I heard that, that Dunwall was designed by the same guy who designed City 17 from Half-Life 2.
Yes.
And I definitely felt that while I was playing through the first one. The city felt really well designed, but very similar to that Half-Life design, which is not a bad thing by any means.
And it's very dark, and very dark and grand. Even going through the slums, you got this feeling of just it was so much bigger than you were. It feels fantastic. The storyline involves everything that you want a steampunk game to involve. It's royalty, it's an assassination, it's being framed, it's a mystery, but it's also that whole plot of revenge. It's having to overcome something greater than yourself and realizing that the world works a little bit different than how you imagined it in your palace. The first game is in the midst of a rat plague, so that's very, Victorian of them. It also deals with some pseudo-supernatural things. There's different ways to attack a target, but there's also different ways to get rid of it. It got a lot of credit for being the assassin game where you could get through it without anybody dying. It was great level design.
I'll say it's much harder to not kill people. I failed that right off the bat.
Yeah, no, when I played the first game, I only killed one target, assassination target. I got everyone else, I got the alternative way to get rid of them, or to discredit them, so that they were no longer a problem. I only killed one, because I literally thought that he was the big bad guy, he deserved to die, and I didn't know how. And I found out after effect how, and it made sense. But anyways, I'm also very bad at stealth, so I was the guy who jumped from one ledge to another and missed it by that much and fell into the guards playing poker, and then had to kill the entire room. And of course they did the alarm, which led to grenades, and grenades are never a stealthy way to go about it. Even in Dishonored 2, they track how you do all the levels. So they track it on a grid scale from stealth to assault, and from chaos to peaceful. And I did a very peaceful run through, but I was a peaceful assault, which meant they added a new way into Dishonored 2, which I absolutely love. Of once you're screwed, you can punch them in the throat and then use that to knock them out and do the stealth takedown, even when they already know you exist. So I'm so bad at stealth, I would run into a room and just start punching throats, and then slowly taking them all out while they're recovering.
I never thought I'd hear that sentence uttered.
Yeah, it was very different way to play, and I realized we're probably going to get some of his footage if I can't boof up some of mine. It's a very interesting way to watch someone play a game, is trying to be stealthy, failing, and then just trying to take everyone out. But they did a lot with the combat system. They did a lot with the gadgets. In the second game, there's a choice between if you want to play the character from the first game or if you want to play the new character, Emily Caldwin. And it's absolutely, there's Corvo Otano, there's Emily Caldwin. They're both different with how they physically move around the map. But they're also, again, that supernatural element. They both have different powers from each other, and will eventually go into different types of gameplay. Corvo Otano also has more connections than Emily does. So,
because he's an old hat and she's the rookie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with Emily, it's a lot of backstory and a lot of nods to certain characters she doesn't know. So she's got to work a little bit harder to get to where she's getting to, being kind of the rookie out on her own on her first Dishonored adventure. Corvo, it's kind of the, I can't believe I got to do this again. He's got it harder in some cases, but in other cases, he's got a lot of old friends from that first game that he can call on, and he's kind of already proven himself a threat.
Great. I really appreciate when games give you multiple characters that can approach the same exact scenarios in different ways. That's nice.
And they do the same thing with players. I recall to a map on the first game where it's a dinner party, and there's so many different ways to attack it, but it's also randomized. I think you're looking for a target, and you know that she's one of 3 sisters, but it's a masquerade. So you kind of have to meet who the 3 sisters are, and then you got to figure out which one you're going after. And there's all these different ways to do it. There's gossip through the party. There's reading their diaries, breaking into their rooms, figuring out who's who and what did they wear. There's flirtation and seduction of the sisters themselves to figure out who's who. There's go in and kill everybody. There's talk to the guards and figure out who's being watched, like who's the sisters that way. There's many different ways to approach this party, and the party was just so good. It's one of the most memorable levels, I think, from the original game, and it's really well done. Ooh, we're gonna cut that. Yeah. It's just one of the most memorable levels from the original game. It's just really well done, and it's very steampunky, and it's one of those ones where, again, I don't think we can talk about a steampunk games list without leaving it out. It's just done right. There's a lot of love in the game.
Very cool. All right, my next recommendation is, again, I know, a little stereotyping myself, another indie title. Actually, series of indie titles. The Steamworld series. Right here, I've got the Steamworld Collection, which has Steamworld Dig and Steamworld Heist. And they just released Steamworld Dig 2.
Which I'm excited for. I'm excited for Dig.
Yeah, I got to play, so I've played a little bit of all of them. Steamworld Dig I had a lot of fun with. I will say I was expecting it to be more of a roguelike with randomized elements, because that's what I had been playing at the time. It's not. It's completely handcrafted, like designed exactly, so it's more about the path you dig down through the level than how the level is each time you play it. I'd say it's worth playing through once. It's really, really fun. You've got this pickaxe, you're this robot prospector, and you're digging down, and you're finding gold and gems, and then, oh hey, there's some little, like, weird little wormy things, little creatures you have to fight through, great. But then you get deeper and deeper, and then there's really weird stuff that you're uncovering. And there's this big crescendo about all this ancient stuff that you're digging up that maybe you really shouldn't have. And Steamworld Heist, it kind of has a similar story structure in that you fight some space pirates, and then you fight these guys who have a different technology from you, and then you fight these really weird, like, alien type things that have come to your galaxy. So it's very, very similar in the whole, like, oh no, we've uncovered this ancient weird alien thing. But Steamworld Heist is a very different game. It's a tactical shooter. I've never played anything like it, because it's a side-scrolling game where you're kind of running through these spaceships, and you're shooting, and you've got all these enemies coming after you, and you pick up loot on your way, and you've got mission objectives, which are really cool. And between these missions, you have these space bars, and you can recruit new crew members, and you can listen to the radio or watch a live performance by Steam-Powered Giraffe in one of the bars, which is really cute, really adorable. And it's a really, really interesting game. I think I personally had more fun with it, but they're both great. Now, Steamworld Dig 2 takes everything that was good from Steamworld Dig 1 and adds a whole new layer of polish. You're playing as a secondary character from the original Dig, who is in search of the missing character who was the main character of the first Dig, and the animation is just so much richer. There's so many more frames of animation in every single motion. And they've really thought about how to change up and improve all the mechanics, all the digging, all the different tools you get, how you upgrade your tools. I haven't gotten too far into it, so I really can't tell you what the story's like. But I'm really, really enjoying it so far. So, have you gotten to play any of the SteamWorld games?
I did. I actually think they're up on my channel. I did kind of an introduction. It ended up being 2 videos, but I basically just played the first few levels. I think I got the first...
Of SteamWorld Heist?
Yeah, SteamWorld Heist. I started with Heist. I'm more excited for Dig. I really like the look and the feel of Dig. I wanted to play Dig really badly. But I started with Heist because a lot of people told me the same thing. Heist is an all-around better game. And you were saying you weren't sure how to describe it. I've heard it described, and I kind of agree, that it's like an RPG battle, but it's all the time. So, like, it's very turn-based, everything is turn-based, but that's you exploring the world in that same RPG battle state, basically, and you kind of do that all the time. And I agree with you, it's fantastic, and I mean, you can't get much more steampunk than literal steam-powered robots exploring space. Yeah. Like it's everything about steampunk. It's old-fashioned, and it's definitely new-fashioned. So,
yep, absolutely. So, all right. So, slightly older console game, although it has gotten a remaster lately. Your next recommendation is one I'm very excited about.
It's Bioshock. Well, the Bioshock series. So yes, Bioshock is a bit of an older game. It's one of my first console games back when I was into consoles. Oh, that's not fair. That's not the first, but it's one of the first ones I got really excited about. I remember my story with it is actually hilarious because I was a huge Halo guy, and it lost Game of the Year. Halo 3 lost Game of the Year to Bioshock, and I was livid. And it actually took me years to buy the game cheap and play it. And then I went, oh, it deserved everything it got. Bioshock is one of those staples of gaming that has a lot of heavy steampunk elements. I think officially we would call it dieselpunk.
Yeah, well, the original 2 are definitely very dieselpunk, but the third one, Infinite...
The third one, Infinite, was definitely a love child
like
to steampunk.
The prototypical, this is what I would call steampunk to anybody.
And it's one of my favorite of all time steampunk games. It has everything you want. It's a very fantastic story. It's got an amazing world-building element that's extremely important to the design of the levels, the design of the characters. It's got a lot of historical games.
Yeah. Now, personally, I found that I had trouble getting into the original game, although I have since gone back and played it, and I do enjoy it. But Infinite was very much simplified, and I found it easier to pick up and play.
I think that's true. I think a lot of people actually got upset at Infinite for that, but I don't know. I don't see the problem. I think Infinite was really trying to be Bioshock again instead of kind of working on its own thing. I was upset with a lot of the stuff that got cut from the game. But let's just talk about how beautiful the game is for a second. And let's go to Infinite specifically because it's way more steampunky.
Sure.
Oh my god, it's gorgeous
City in the
floating
sky.
cities. How about the gadgets? Let's talk about steampunk elements. There are gas-powered turrets that are beautiful. The vending machines of guns.
The handymen?
The handymen. How about the skyhooks, which is one of the most creative uses of steampunk I've seen in a while. The whole getting around on like aerial train tracks.
Yeah.
And making it be cool and punky.
Those are amazing.
Oh, it's really
and
well
those
done.
make fights really dynamic.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love. So there's certain levels that like utilize rooftops plus the rails, plus some like hiding points that like really make a really deep, interesting combat scenario.
I would love to play like the original demo of the game where it was supposed to be more open world, and as crap went down, you could escape it and then deal with it later, or like crap would go down and they would look for you. They have one level that I think was completely taken from that, and it felt amazing. You're fighting, you're doing stuff, an airship comes in, starts firing down at you. You got to find a way to take it out, and then you eventually have to get up there to it, and you got to like fling yourself from the rails onto it and take it down from the inside, and it's a whole almost a whole nother level inside this airship. And then you take it out, you jump out, and there's a rail. So you hit the rail and you go as the thing's blowing up and coming down. And it's amazing. And it's cinematic.
And the vigors and the plasmids.
Oh yeah.
Those powers are amazing.
It's another great use of that.
Yeah.
Like Dishonored uses almost like voodoo kind of dark magic things for your abilities. This is way more of like an augmented of DNA magic to it.
It's interesting.
Oh yeah,
cool.
And it's fantastic. So I mean, that's definitely, if we recommend anything, I think Bioshock is safe to say that's a huge recommendation for steampunk games.
Cool. So I'm gonna step to a series that can tease steampunk sometimes, but this one particular entry in this series is very steampunk, and right off the bat, I'm talking about Final Fantasy VI, originally released in the US for the Super Nintendo as Final Fantasy III, although most of the re-releases have corrected that horrible numbering issue. Yeah. So Final Fantasy VI is, what can I say about it? It's the last great pixel art Final Fantasy game. And they used all the tricks of that 5th generation, 4th generation,
visual.
Yeah, it was 4th generation. Yeah, all of the hardware. So they used Mode 7 to give you the cinematic thing. They had all these interesting transitions. They had a lot of great ideas about the battle system. I think active time battle was kind of in its infancy. If they didn't call it that, it was at least very, very similar to what we would get in later titles. And I don't know what to say about Final Fantasy VI other than it also, for a pixel game, is very cinematic. The opera scene is so infamous. The opera scene is fantastic.
And I think I would go as far as to say, for real, it's many gamers' first introduction into steampunk. It was very unique for its time, and at its time, steampunk was still fairly new as a genre that we recognized as steampunk, and it was all there, unforgiving, very much steampunk, and people fell in love with it.
Yeah. And Final Fantasy VI is up there with Final Fantasy IX as one of my favorite games in that series.
Yeah.
So what I will say though is that they did a mobile release later on, and they changed the graphics in a way that just kind of takes me out of it. It feels cheap. And that's okay for a mobile port, I guess. But when they brought Final Fantasy VI to the PC, it was the mobile version, high def. And that just feels awful. I really wish they would have taken the PlayStation version or even the Game Boy Advance version and just made that high def instead of taking this weird, very mobile approach version to the PC. So if you're gonna get it, I would recommend get the Game Boy Advance version, which has the best gameplay mechanic tweaks, or get the PlayStation 1 version, which you can get on the PS3 or the PlayStation Vita or the original PlayStation. I would get those versions. They're probably the best ones to get. So you have an older console pick that's
I do.
A little on the space western side.
Yeah, this is one that I really kind of struggled with, but I think it deserves to be said because of its steampunk kind of elements in it and its uniqueness of it. When we talk a lot about steampunk, we talk about gadgets, sometimes world, Victorian. So we're talking about Oddworld Stranger's Wrath, specifically Stranger's Wrath. And now, it uses a lot of...
That's the 3rd or 4th game in the Oddworld trilogy?
I believe
quadrilogy.
So. Yeah, like it's one of the later ones of the official one before they started remastering and kind of reimagining the world. And It's very unique. It has several steampunk elements, like Weird West kind of stuff going on with it. But one of the big things with it is its kind of uniqueness with steampunk. It's got a lot of different gadgets. It uses like live ammunition for its guns. So you're shooting little animals and little creatures that each do something different. So they all have different uses. He's also got different creatures working as like items in the game, I believe, as well.
So it's like you do have an electric gun, but it's because you have this electric creature that you fire from your crossbow.
Exactly, yeah, like an electric eel or electric bug, or it's been a while. But a lot of the worlds as well, a lot of the kind of puzzles and stuff you got to solve. It's that old, like dingy
Wild West,
Wild West technology taken to the extreme. I mean, he's a bounty hunter going off. It's that kind of story, like Animal People, and it's just very Wild West. It's very there's different gadgets and things, and it's just a different take on steampunk that I think a lot of people don't go with, and they don't really think about. And as a older game, I definitely wanted to call out to it because I feel that it's definitely kind of underappreciated.
Now, I was playing a little bit of the Xbox version, and I played a little bit of the mobile port they did recently, and I found the mobile controls to be really nice. You move your character. You move your character with the whole left side of the screen. Like you put your thumb down, and then it's like relative to wherever you move it from there. And then the camera is the entire right side of the screen, and then they have like punch button, bounty button, and that sort of thing. But I found it was really, really well done.
It's so weird because that kind of reminds me of another mobile game that has similar controls that I believe is also a steampunk game that you made.
It's very, very much in the same vein. Yeah, if you look at our Steampunk Games section, for one of the years we did a Steampunk Games Jam, I did a first-person shooter.
You can probably link that in the description.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice little...
You're right. It is very much similar controls, and I had ate that control scheme from somewhere because it was just brilliant, and I was super happy to see Oddworld use the same thing.
It's weird at the beginning, but it makes perfect sense as you're playing. I honestly am saying this not just because you made the game. It's actually really... I was surprised how good it worked.
So I guess I have one more recommendation. It's definitely an older game. It has gotten a re-release on the Game Boy Advance and then the 3DS, and each time it got better graphics, and they wanted to do a PC port, and they were on Steam Greenlight and all that, but then it just went silent, and it was a shame because it looked gorgeous. However, get the game on 3DS, get the game on Game Boy Advance, load up Genesis, and get Steel Empire. It is a classic shoot-'em-up, shmup, horizontal shmup, and you can shoot forwards and you can also shoot backwards. So some of the boss fights, the boss kind of moves around left and right, and so you have to like shift to the other side of him and shoot in the other direction. I really do like that. Not a lot of horizontal shooters have shooting in both directions, and I think it adds kind of a more dynamic element to some of the levels, especially especially it was like the second level where you're going underground. That worked a lot. That was really, really cool because you would go down this shaft and you would have boulders coming from like above and left of you, and you kind of have to like stay in one corner and shoot the boulders, and then you'd have to switch to the other corner to shoot the guys coming from the front. I thought it was really, really cool, really fun. It's definitely more arcadey, and I understand that the genre isn't for everybody, but if you like shooters in any way, I had a blast with Steel Empire.
And let's talk about how it looks. Even on those old graphics, that is a beautiful game.
Yeah.
And very, very steampunk.
Yeah, one of the things I liked best is that it was definitely inspired by the more steampunky things that were out at the time, which in '92 meant that it was being inspired by, like, Laputa. So some of these airships have these tiny little flapping wings like Miyazaki likes to do, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, it's definitely unique and beautiful. I think in almost all of them that at least you showed me looked absolutely. It's a gorgeous game, gorgeous art, and it's 100% steampunk.
Oh yeah, cool.
Is it the oldest game on our list today?
It is absolutely the oldest game on our list.
Absolutely the oldest.
Yep. 1992 is the oldest we're going back.
All right. Well, hey, that's That's fantastic.
Cool. So, we hope that you liked our list of Steampunky game recommendations. There's definitely a lot more games that we would have loved to talk about, but we figured it was better to, you know, give you a core set of games that were for a variety of consoles, and were among a variety of different genres, because everybody likes to play different things. So, we will try and link to everything we can below. And where can they find your content? Your YouTube?
My channel.
And your Facebook?
Well, you can definitely find me at the Landship Scorpius YouTube page, linked down below. And you can also find me on Facebook.com/Landship, where you can find steampunk video games, steampunk board games, and even a lot of my writing stuff, including Citizens of Antiford stuff.
Yep.
I'll share whatever I'm involved in on there. And then where can they find all the great Citizens of Antiford content?
Well, if you're not already there on the site looking at this, then you're on YouTube. And we definitely recommend you go hop over to citizensofantiford.com and check out the rest of the videos, because we link to videos on other channels, not just ours. And there's a whole bunch of stories, like some great stories from this guy, like that prototype game from the Game Jam he was talking about that I did. All sorts of great stuff.
There's going to be a lot of links down below. And if you wanna see more of me and see more Citizens of Antiford, you can do both in one easy step. We have a book, and I believe you can order it online. Probably link down below. Oh, look at that!
Shoop.
So whenever possible, we definitely want you to link down below to that. It's available now. Go ahead and order it. Let us know if you want to see more.
One of these days, we'll finish a full release video game for Antiford, and we'll do a whole nother list and put it right at the top.
Yes, for everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Subscribe.
Cool. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Subscribe.